Why explain? I don't know why our lives aren't the same. Things change suddenly, and so it goes.
Cancer is a leading cause of death. About 13% of all deaths globally, and in the developed world it claims the life of about 1 in 4 people. According to the World Health Organization, this figure will rise to 1 in 3 by 2020. So most of us, if not all of us, know someone close to us that has died from cancer.
And so it goes.
I was on the road when I got the call from Dad. Mum had cancer and didn't have long to live. My first reaction was, my children are never going to get to know their grandmother. Not that my wife was even pregnant at the time. Then the first stage of grief set in. Denial. What? This couldn't be happening? Not my mum. She's like one of the healthiest people I know. All my friends used to say how healthy she was. Mum was diagnosed with mesothelioma. Meso what? It took me a while just to be able to pronounce that word.
By the term mesothelioma, we usually refer to malignant mesothelioma, which is a cancer of the membranes which lines body cavities. Mesothelioma most often occurs in the pleural cavities, but it can affect the peritoneum and less often the pericardium. But over 90% of cases do involve the pleural cavities.
A bit beyond me, but basically it's classed as a lung cancer. So what is the root of this evil?
The overwhelming cause of malignant mesothelioma is asbestos inhalation. That is, inhalation of asbestos fibres.
Professor Henderson has turned over court cases in the UK where big companies have had to pay out to victims of asbestos-related mesothelioma.
So that the cases that we see now of mesothelioma are a consequence of asbestos exposure that occurred 30 or 40 years ago.
30 to 40 years ago? I was just a kid living with my mum and dad and my 2 older sisters. Mum was dedicated to maintaining the home, looking after us kids and taking care of Dad. She spent most of her time at home. So where did the asbestos come from?
A number of the mesotheliomas that I see now occur not amongst occupationally exposed groups such as carpenters, but on what I'd call the occasional do-it-yourself or handyman type of worker who carries out renovations and alterations to his own home and uses, for example, a circular saw to cut through asbestos cement sheets as part of adding on a veranda or a living room or something like that. So that although those exposures are low and they carry a corresponding low risk, there are many people carrying out that type of activity, so that when you multiply a low risk across a large population, it can produce significant numbers of mesotheliomas.
Dad spent most of the 70s renovating our house on weekends. Why we were still living in it. All at a time when asbestos was a popular building material and there was no common knowledge of its danger. G'day, I'm Marcus Lovett and I've led a fairly hedonistic life. Travelling the world, fulfilling my taste of daring do. I competed in freestyle skiing at the Calgary Olympic Winter Games back in 1988. Those high-flying antics led me into stunt work and a little bit of cliff diving.
Well, Lovett is going to do a forward double somersault with a half twist.
I'll soon be hitting half a century. And one of my personal physical goals is to be able to do a standing backsalto until I'm 50. I'm on track, but it is getting harder. I continue to lead an active lifestyle and I'm very conscious of what I eat. Actually, I should be. My sister is Cindy O'Meara, best-selling author and nutritionist, so I get a lot of help with my eating habits. I've just had my first child and another one planned, so a happy, healthy life is most important. My wife is on the same wavelength. Health and good living has always been part of my life. My father, although started out as a pharmacist in New Zealand, ended up being one of the first chiropractors in Australia. As kids, Mum and Dad would make my two older sisters and I listen to the pop psychologists of the time.
Success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal.
As much as us kids fought it, we were all brainwashed for some sort of success. Even my mum had a goal to live until she was 100. We all believed it. She looked fantastic for her age. She was active, she ate healthy, she volunteered for community groups, she went to church on Sundays, she treated everyone with respect, she didn't drink, she didn't smoke. So why then did she die at the relatively early age of 69? This is my journey to find out what ate my mum, and will it eat me? But not everyone who breathes in asbestos or comes in contact with any known carcinogen dies of cancer. There must be something else.
I remember one case of a woman whose husband worked with asbestos, and he brought home asbestos-contaminated work clothes which she shook out in the laundry and then washed. And her daughter was often present in the laundry while the mother was shaking out the clothes. And the mother and the daughter both developed mesothelioma within 3 years of each other, and both died from it. So that this is one of the reasons why we think there is this element of genetic susceptibility.
Just like the daughter in Professor Henderson's story, half of my mum's genetics make up me. And just to add insult to injury, my mother's family has a history of defective genetics. My mum was the oldest of 11 children, born into a family of pure German origin, but fourth generation American. My mum had 7 brothers, of which 6 were hemophiliacs, the anti-blood clotting disease. At the time, they were the largest hemophiliac family in the world. Hemophiliacs lack the clotting agent in the blood that stops the bleeding when you get bruised or cut. Like Queen Victoria, my grandmother was a carrier. However, Queen Victoria had only 9 children and only 1 son that was a hemophiliac and 2 daughters that were carriers. Hemophilia is a hereditary disease that mainly affects the males, but females can carry the defective gene to the next generation. Fortunately, I dodged that bullet. But the genetic predisposition doesn't end there. Like most families in developed countries, we have a history of cancer. Besides my mum's losing battle with cancer, Mum's sisters, Mary and Claire, have been diagnosed with breast cancer. Then on my father's side of the family, my uncle Pat died from cancer of the liver. Things are not looking good for me. I've heard of some young women having their breasts removed just because they carry the same defective gene that may give them breast cancer. Not only do I have the genetic predisposition from both sides of the family, I also have the environmental exposure. But I won't be removing any part of my body just yet. I won't be removing any part of my body, no matter how susceptible to cancer it may be. Because not everyone that comes in contact with a carcinogen and comes from the same family dies from cancer. There's just gotta be something else.
Why one person in a family should develop it and another one similarly exposed doesn't, as I've said, is probably a matter of chance, predisposition, that a colleague of mine once likened it to rolling consecutive sixes at dice. When you do it, most people will never strike 15 or 20 consecutive sixes, but by chance some person will strike the correct combination and actually roll 15 or 20 consecutive sixes at dice. And it's a matter of having the right or the correct set of mutations which progress to a mesothelioma is likened to rolling consecutive sixes at dice. It's a matter of chance and I think predisposition.
Great, I've rolled 2 double sixes so far. I've been exposed to a carcinogen and I have a high chance of a genetic predisposition. However, I learned at Monash University in the Department of General Practice that I may have a bit of control over my genetic predisposition.
So we used to think about genes in a very concrete kind of way. It's programmed into the genes, that's what's going to happen. We now know that what's in our genes, the expression of that is being affected by a lot of other factors. So it's a very much, I suppose you could say at birth we're dealt a hand in terms of our genetic disposition, but we get to play that hand depending on how we live after that.
Again with the gambling analogy. So did I play my hand differently to Mum? Or did I just roll the same double sixes as her? Reports from the World Health Organization indicates many cancers are due to dietary risks, and I pretty much had the same diet as my mum. To find out more about my mother's diet, I went to Deakin University to talk with Associate Professor Tim Crowe, a nutrition academic who specialises in the role nutrition plays in disease prevention, and he is also a practicing dietitian.
We know a huge amount of how diet affects the risk of cancer, but once someone has cancer and that cancer is growing, we actually don't know a lot of information about that. Diet doesn't seem to play as big a role during the progression of cancer, but as far as somebody developing that first mutation or those first few changes in their body where they actually develop the cancer, that's where diet and lifestyle plays the biggest role.
So Mum probably had her first mutation around 30 to 40 years ago. Mum loved her cooking and did all the food preparation for the family. This is the type of food we typically ate, and this is what we look like.
For all of the years that I've worked in nutrition and health, whether you're talking about cancer, whether you're talking about heart disease, type 2 diabetes or obesity, and that sums up 3/4 of almost all disease risk in Australia, the fundamentals of actually eating a diet that's full of unprocessed foods, typically the foods that your grandmother ate, foods that are predominantly plant-based, that include small amounts of animal foods if you choose to eat them, not drinking too much and not smoking, and keeping a good body weight and being active, addresses probably 90 to 95% of all disease risk. Because it always comes back to the basics. You can get focused on all of the complex metabolism and how nutrients interact and what they do to particular cells in our body. But if you have those basic fundamentals right, it doesn't guarantee you'll live to be 100 with no disease, but the odds of it happening are much, much better than other people.
So Mum and I did all that, but we also love our desserts, and I still do today. I wouldn't say I'm excessive with them, but I finish most meals with something sweet. Most health professionals learn about the Nobel Prize-winning research Otto Heinrich Warburg did back in the 1920s, and he said,
Die Hauptursache von Krebs ist der Ersatz der Atmung von Sauerstoff in normalen Körperzellen durch Fermentation von Zucker.
What? Please don't make me choose between life and dessert.
Okay, this is one theory that it seems to make sense when you talk about it. You know, sugar is a wonderful fuel source for our body. I mean, our muscles thrive on sugar. Any athlete who's worth their salt has a high carbohydrate diet because muscles love that. Our brain prefers to run on glucose. But biochemically, there's nothing special about sugar. It's a glucose molecule and a fructose molecule joined together. When you eat starch, all that becomes, in your blood, glucose. So there's actually not a lot of evidence to say that eating sugar just makes cancer grow, because when you eat that sugar, it's chopped into its individual units and it becomes glucose in your bloodstream. It's hard to tell the difference between glucose that's come from sugar, glucose that's come from a potato. They're pretty much the same. So the evidence to link sugar and cancer is almost non-existent.
Because I really love my desserts. Okay, so my diet is good and it's not going to be the cause of my demise. Don't panic, it's organic, vegan and gluten-free. Growing up, we had an apricot tree, and Mum would have us eat the apricot kernels like it was a preventative pill fighting any possible future cancer. Some health authorities warn against eating too many apricot kernels, because if you eat too many of them, like hundreds in a day, it'll make you feel ill or may even cause death. Well, there is no conclusive evidence of anyone dying from eating too many apricot kernels. But really, if you eat too much of anything, it's going to make you feel ill. Apparently, apricot kernels have cancer-fighting elements, like vitamin B17, a vitamin not recognised by all health professions. Cyanide, yes, the deadly cyanide, but in small, naturally occurring doses, fights cancer, and amygdalin, which also attacks the cancer cell. In my mum's case, eating apricot kernels didn't stop any cancer, but it didn't make her ill either. And old habits die hard. I still eat apricot kernels, hoping they'll boost my fight against any possible cancer. The World Health Organization also says that alcohol and tobacco are other leading risk factors for cancer. Now, Mum had about a glass of wine a month, if that, and she didn't smoke. So when she died, I thought, I kind of like alcohol, and I like the buzz I get from it, and I probably don't drink as much as I could. Now, if not drinking didn't help my mum, I thought I'd have a few more drinks than usual.
All the planets in line and Einstein's theory nearly captured time. I finally had a reason to rhyme. And when the world watches over me, I'm gonna have a reason to shine. Grounded by the only thing that I can call my own. The music of my...
Actually, I never really did like smoking.
Believe what you're saying. Yeah, you gotta believe in what you're doing. Said you gotta believe when your back's against the wall, standing tall.
It didn't last, because the consequences of not feeling too good the day after put a stop to that. Now I'm back to the odd drink, well within what's considered healthy. Except perhaps during the holiday season.
I'll always make an effort to eat well. My family and I avoid preservatives, buy organic wherever possible, and continue to heed the advice of our nutritionist, my sister, Cindy O'Meara. Yeah, I know it's more expensive, but my family's health is my highest priority. And it's not just about the long term, so I can live forever. It's about the short term, so I can enjoy every day and get the most out of it.
Things are looking up for me, even though I had the same contact with a carcinogen as my mum, and I may have the same genetic predisposition. At least I had a good diet, despite it being the same as my mum. But I must be a real mama's boy, because there are more similarities between mum and I. We both led active lives. Although Mum was no athlete, she kept active. She would walk everywhere, she'd take the bicycle instead of the car wherever possible, worked hard in the garden, and when we went on holidays, she would make us walk to every tourist attraction from dawn till dusk. Surely this kind of lifestyle has proven to be essential for longevity. Author of The Essence of Health and senior lecturer at Monash University, Dr. Craig Hassard confirms the importance of being active.
Now we know that physical exercise reduces a person's risk of getting cancer. But what about after the time of diagnosis? So a study from the Journal of the American Medical Association found for nearly 3,000 women with breast cancer, if the woman exercised regularly after the time of diagnosis, there was a halving of mortality or death rate from breast cancer over the following 18 years. So halving. If that was a new drug, it would be so expensive, and it would be prescribed to every woman who had, got breast cancer. It would be absolutely, you'd be negligent for not prescribing it. The ballpark figure is pretty similar across different kinds of cancer. So exercise. The level of exercise is not running marathons. It's a half hour of brisk walking on a daily basis.
A saying that rings in my head is if you don't use it, you'll lose it. So I'm paranoid if I don't use my muscles every day, I'll lose them. I even take it to the nth degree by supplementing my sex life with a bit of masturbation, because I don't want to end up with erectile dysfunction or worse still, prostate cancer. So I do what I can to look after all the external factors, the environment, my diet, my body, just as my mum did. My healthy habits are a result of my parents' upbringing, but it didn't help my mum. So I really need to find the difference between mum and me, or I soon could be following in her footsteps. So what else ate my mum? And could it be eating me?
But I would say actually the mind is very crucial. The mind, firstly, because it has direct effects on the way our body functions, but secondly, it's the mind that determines whether or not we eat well, or we exercise, or how we live.
So how did Mum live? We know her diet and exercise were good, her environment was toxic, she had no say in her genetics. But how did she choose to live? My sister Cindy and I decided to go to my mum's family reunion in New Mexico. Though not as big as they used to be, they are still full of a lot of love. And while Cindy packed, I asked her about Mum.
Milk and cookies when you get home from school, dessert every night for dinner. Mum was always in the kitchen, that's what I remember. She just made the most beautiful meals and her life was in the kitchen. I knew that that's where I'd find her. No matter what I was needing or where I needed her, she was in the kitchen and we would go there and we would have a conversation. And I am sure Mum never ever showed anybody her cracks, not once. So for me, she was the Stepford friend, the Stepford mother, the Stepford wife. I never saw her and Dad fight, ever, while we were growing up. It was always, and Dad would walk in the house and he would kiss her. You know, remember, he would hug and kiss her. She'd be by the fire or something and he would just come in and hug and kiss her, or she'd be in the kitchen and he'd hug and kiss her every time.
Dad also joined us on our road trip of discovery to catch up with Mum's friends and family. We started in Denver, Colorado, seeing one of Mum's closest friends from when she was just 18 years of age at nursing college in Iowa, Ginny Green.
We all had a lot of fun. She had gone out on a date and we had to be in at 10 o'clock and we had to sign in at 10 o'clock. So then she went out the fire escape, or we had to put something in the door so that she could get back in later that night. And I asked her, wasn't she worried about getting caught? She said, no. I think gradually she got more serious, but I loved to hear her laugh.
So Mum got up to some mischief, just as I did. We travelled south along the Rockies to Ruidoso, New Mexico, where the family reunion was being held. This is the first time I've seen any of the family since Mum died.
Well, I'm the fourth oldest of 11 children. I was the second girl. Jan was the oldest.
I had 3 older brothers and 3 younger brothers. And let's see, 3 older sisters and 1 younger sister. So I'm right in the middle of everyone.
Third from the bottom, the last girl.
Jan and I shared the same bedroom. I enjoyed talking to her. She always was very knowledgeable about everything and would help me with things. And most of the time she was very fun-loving and you know, she could talk to anybody. But I remember her very much so being, she wasn't the outdoors person like I was. And we would pick up bugs, flies, and scare your mom, Jan.
I used to do the same with spiders.
Yeah, we could chase her all over the farm, even a chicken feather. She was scared to death of a chicken feather, you know.
And she's a farm girl.
Yeah, yeah. But she did most of the, she helped Mom in the house a lot, you see.
See that energy and that enthusiasm about life and to see her family here that she only got to see occasionally. That excitement and everything was really neat and it was really fun.
Part of that in Jan too, that she wants things to be better than they are, but don't we all? But yes, I think she really tried to not look at the bad side. She was a very optimistic person, I think.
Your mom would take care of us while Mom and Dad went to town to get groceries. If we weren't very good, she'd lock us in the basement.
Bye, Marcus.
Yeah, bye.
My mum's only other sister, my Auntie Mary, lives in Australia. Unfortunately, she missed the family reunion, but I caught up with her on my return.
I'm in the middle. There's 5 older and 5 younger than me. She was a fantastic housekeeper and obviously loved the children and just loved that domestic role so that consumed most of her life, I guess. But she also liked to have fun and give parties and she had a lot of friends too. So she, yeah, I think there was a lot of variety in her life too. Well, she had her serious side. You know, she did take her responsibilities very seriously. But she also had a light, bright side to her. Yeah, I guess I do see some of you and Jan, or Jan and you. Fun-loving, light and breezy, very quick to laugh. Jan was, you know, she really loved to joke. And I see you that way too, very sort of bubbly and bouncy and a nice light and breezy personality, yeah.
There are similar personality traits between Mum and me. So is this another double 6 I've rolled? Another hand of cards I've played badly, or another bullet in the Russian roulette chamber? Perhaps Dad can enlighten me on the finer differences between Mum and me.
She was always very highly thought of. I think even, I don't know this, but I think even as a child, she was highly considered by her peers, and growing up and as she got older, and certainly as she got older. She was a very highly respected woman. She never let herself go. She was always neat and tidy about herself and in the house. She was a very high moral character.
But I think Jan was a little bit more serious than you.
I am not a mama's boy all the way through, but perhaps cancer has a personality profile. I went to the Royal Melbourne Hospital to talk to a man in the trenches who deals with the fight against cancer on a daily basis, oncologist Dishan Gunwandana, and I asked him, does cancer have a personality profile?
I don't think so is the short answer, but a lot of the time cancers develop just as a function of bad luck, essentially. If you think about the way our body works, you know, we're making new cells all the time, the body's producing new tissues all the time, and in that process the cells are dividing, new cells are being grown, and errors can occur in that process. And the body's got actually quite a lot of defence mechanisms to deal with those errors and shut down the cells if they do develop errors. But inevitably there is a risk that those cells that contain the genetic errors can escape the defence mechanisms and grow, and those are usually the beginnings of cancer. And so there's certainly predispositions towards that, but we don't, in the majority of cases, we think it's just bad luck.
I struggle to believe it's just bad luck. Surely there is something else. Like, what about attitude?
I don't think in a scientific sense we can draw major conclusions about attitude, but anecdotally, so in other words, have I seen cases where, you know, patients who've had a positive attitude have been able to keep going for longer? That's definitely the case.
A good positive attitude may help you live longer once you have the cancer, but attitude doesn't seem to play a role on whether you get cancer or not in the first place.
Their mental state, and particularly someone like your mother who, you know, obviously I don't know and I don't really know anything about the specifics, but from what you said, sounds like a very mentally strong person. But to have a lot of events happen in her life and a lot of traumatic events, and I think patients can sometimes make decisions that they don't want to get better. And You know, I have no idea whether that was the case for her or not, but certainly if there's family trauma going on and things that are causing a lot of stress for her in the family, that can certainly have an effect, and we do see that.
My mum has certainly had her fair share of traumatic events.
I often quote Rose Kennedy, who said, "It's not the problems in life that matter, it's how you cope with them."
Rose Fitzgerald Kennedy, the mother of the famous President JFK, lived until she was 105, but took psychotropic drugs to cope with her problems. So perhaps she really just existed until she was 105. My mum would never have considered drugs to soothe the emotional pain. She didn't even like alcohol. Let's consider my mum's family trauma. At the time Mum most probably came into contact with asbestos was the time her youngest brother Tommy died from complications with haemophilia. I didn't even know my uncle, and for that matter, Mum had left America before he was born. He died in August 1971 and was only 11 years old. This was the start of all her haemophiliac brothers dying, and due to contaminated blood transfusions in the 80s, haemophiliacs were contracting AIDS. More than just her brothers were dying, some of their families too. Her last brother to die, Loris, had lived with the AIDS virus for 10 years and finally succumbed to his illnesses August 1997. Loris was 7 years younger than Mum, and they were close.
She knew she had to expect it, and she did cope with it very well. Certainly, it was unsettling to her, but she did cope. She coped very well, I feel.
And I can tell you, I do remember the one thing that I think was, I know it was one of the hardest things I ever did, and I can't remember which one of my brother's deaths, but to call, to get on the phone and call and say that one of the brothers had died, and to talk to your mom and to talk to Mary. And knowing they're so far away, that, you know, I'm certain they felt helpless, that they wanted to be around family, and it just wasn't possible. But those were difficult phone calls that I can remember making. And like I said, I don't remember whose death or when somebody was in the hospital, but it was just, you could hear the emotion and the pain on their end, because they wanted to be there, to be supportive, and you felt so sorry for them because you wanted to give them a hug, and so that in itself, I think, took a lot of strength because we had each other back here, you know, they had their husband and their children as support, but again, they weren't here with the family, so that I imagined had to be horrible for them.
But the traumatic family events didn't stop there. Grandma had to watch almost all her sons die, as well as Grandpa. Then she finally passed away early 2006 at 91 years of age. Now my mum was the matriarch of the dwindling Gedkin family.
I remember one night laying on a bed and talking till about 2 o'clock in the morning, and how great Mom was, and you know what she had given all of us and taught all of us. And I think it affected Jan quite a bit, yes. And I know she told me on the phone, "Claire, I'd love to be there, you know." But she said, "I can't do anything more for Mom now." And I said, "I understand."
I know how much Mom affected all of us.
Your mother coped with her mother's death very well.
Although Dad thought highly of Mum, he was also well aware of her ability to hide things.
No matter how much you're struggling inside, she continued to put on a good front. She always appeared good, even though she might be highly troubled inside. She still appeared to all her friends and that as a very well put together person.
She'd had so much grief in her life, and I never saw her cry. Never saw her cry with all the boys when they died. I never saw her cry about one of them. She may have in her quiet moments, but she didn't in front of me. But when Grandma died, she cried.
Just one more family trauma. My oldest sister, Lisa, is diagnosed with esophageal cancer at the same time as the death of Grandma.
This was early February, and she couldn't swallow. And I said, what are you going to do about it? She couldn't drink water, she couldn't eat, she couldn't do anything. And I think Mum and Dad ended up taking her to the hospital. And that's when we found out that she had a 7-centimetre tumour in her esophagus. And I know Mum was frantic, just frantic.
Lisa is a whole other story, but could have been my sister's death that tipped Mum over the edge. I mean, my sister was diagnosed with cancer. Then my mum gets sick, and soon after, she is diagnosed with mesothelioma. Even though the cancer had been growing inside my mum for many years, it was this point in time it decided to rear its ugly head.
I remember talking to her a few times, and you know, she was still trying to be positive, I think. But it seemed like horrendous, with Lisa being there and her trying to nurse Lisa and then getting the diagnosis. It just seemed like that's our family luck, isn't it? I mean, you know, like you have hemophilia and then you get stuck with AIDS, and you're dealing with Lisa's illness and then you get your own. It was just like unreal, bizarre. But she never complained, she really didn't. But she was, you know, looking for the health farm, looking for the answer. That's what I remember.
Yeah, I was surprised. I was really surprised in one way, because, you know, I'm into health and into food, and Mum did everything right. She didn't do anything wrong as far as nutrition went. Oh, occasionally she ate too much dessert, but for the most part, she did everything right. She ate organic, she made everything from scratch. She was meticulous with, you know, alternating her foods so that she was having variety. Nuts, seeds, the organic meats, organic milk, everything was right. So in that way it surprised me, but in another way it actually didn't. I think Mum got tired. I think she couldn't go on anymore. I think with the deaths of so many family members, all her brothers and her sisters-in-law and her nephew, and then I think the final straw was Grandma dying and then Lisa getting sick. And that happened within weeks of each other, you know, when Grandma died and then Lisa got sick. So I think it all just got a little bit hard. And I remember saying to Mum, I'll go to the funeral with you. If you want to go to the funeral, I'll go with you. And she said, I'm too tired, I don't think I can do it. So we didn't go to Grandma's funeral. We just didn't go. And then when the funeral was over, Mum said to me, you know, I'm the matriarch now. I am the matriarch of the family. And that was a big thing for her. She felt like she had this huge responsibility. And then Lisa got sick, and, you know, they gave her 3 months to live. And I actually think Mum went, I'm not watching my daughter die. I am not watching this. You know, in her subconscious, I don't think she really said it in her mind. And I think everything that had been happening to her, that I think she just went, I've had enough, I'm going.
Dad has been a chiropractor for over 50 years and has helped so many people both with their physical problems and their emotional. And although he helped me through all my breaks and sprains from freestyle skiing and stunt work, he couldn't help Mum or Lisa.
I couldn't talk to her about it. There's lots of things I'd like to have said to her before she died, but she didn't want to discuss them. And it was mainly about the fact that she was dying, but she wouldn't talk to me about that. If I was dealing with someone else in the same problem, I could have determined a lot about what was going on. But as far as I was concerned, I was too involved with the whole affair and too close to your mother. I felt the same thing with Lisa, that with Lisa's illness, I was never really able to get to the basic reason, why did she get sick? Which is what I like to do now, which I have been doing for the last 20 years, trying to determine why do people get sick. And unfortunately, Lisa and your mother were both too close to me, and I couldn't do what I do with so many people now.
I shared the same toxic environment as my mum. I share a lot of the same genetics as my mum. We have a similar lifestyle. Personality trait is pretty similar as well. And I shared the same events as my mum, including the death of my mum. So what ate my mum? Is it going to eat me?
My mum died from cancer late 2006, and I'm still around. Although my wife worries about me and insists I get some moles checked on my head. I did, it was nothing. Why do so many science-based health practitioners use the term bad luck? I mean, if it's just bad luck, why do we blame carcinogens? And if it's just carcinogens, why do so many people survive them? I've thrown a lot of double sixes in my time, but I've played the hand I've been dealt the best I can, as did my mum.
There are so many elements that affect our health. Some we can control and some we can't. We are born with our genetics, but we can choose to improve them. We can't always control the environment we travel through, but we can choose to live in a home that is safe. We don't always know what's in the food we eat when we're out, but we can choose quality, real food at home. Sometimes life can get so busy we can't always enjoy the fun physical activities, but we can choose to walk or ride a bike or take the stairs. We can't always control the events in our life, but we can choose how we're going to deal with them. I don't know how my mum handled all that grief, or in fact this is what actually ate her. It's the dark recesses of our mind that is the hardest to control. Taking time out from your busy schedule just to be and meditate has often been spruiked as beneficial for a long and healthy life. According to many studies, including research from the world-renowned medical facility King's College Medical Hospital in London, psychological risk factors were just as significant as environmental risk factors. Just like smoking increases your risk of cancer, the research found that a loss of an important relationship coupled with the inability to express emotions greatly increased your chance of a lung-related cancer.
So within the family, when we were growing up, we really didn't talk about our emotions very much. They were just kept under the surface, that fear and grief, and we were just made, well, we just felt like we just had to get on with it. Which was, I guess, the example of our parents too. There was a lot of activity, a lot of responsibility, and a lot of things to do around the house to keep the household running, and so you had to deal with those occasions, but you also just had to get on with living as well.
I was the main carer for my mum in the last week of her life, and Mum gave all impressions she was ready to check out. Why she was ready to cash in her chips, I'll never know for sure. Mum had her family emotional trauma, and now I have mine, with both my sister and my mum dying. Perhaps this documentary is my way of expressing my emotions, and that is the main difference between my mum and me, is that I wear my emotions on my sleeve and I spent time grieving with the family. My mum didn't always have that opportunity. Mum had no problem expressing joy, anger, even surprise. She was so easy to read when we played cards. It's just that she struggled with grief. Now, people that are unable to express emotion may get cancer, but not everyone that struggles with emotion will get cancer. Just like not everyone that breathes asbestos will get cancer, or anyone with a genetic predisposition will get cancer. It's just that all these things increase the risk. Just another double six. I hope my ability to express emotion is different enough from my mum to help me survive and reach that goal of mine of becoming a centurion.
Life can be so cruel sometimes. It takes you on a trip you don't know where to. And then you get lost somewhere. Trying to find your way is all you can do. It's one of those mysteries, how life can be so cruel. It seems no matter how I try, nothing ever fits the way that it should. Oh, why must it be this way? Just before it all looked oh so good. Just when you think you got it all worked out, how life can be so cruel. So keep on hanging around till you got it all down. Don't let it slip away, away. Fight through the crowds and aim for the clouds. It's all up to you. Remember it's true how life can be so cruel.
It's good sometimes. You got to get the emotions out.
So keep on hanging around till you got it all down. Don't let it slip away, away.